Hello and welcome back to Goswick Lane. We are back with Bradon Oram, and we're about to dive into the deals. So if you're interested in real estate and getting your first property started, Bradon's going to give you some crazy good insight on how to evaluate a deal. So in the last episode, we talked about how many deals you've done. I'm just going to establish his credibility here. He's done over 120 doors. He currently has for rent about 90 doors. And when you first got started, before you had any properties, what was your goal?
Man, so the initial goal was, right after high school, we graduated in the end of May.
Yeah.
I think it was like June 15th, 2 weeks later, I was going to fire academy.
Yeah.
And so, just like on the previous episode, talked about how Dad was a Longview fireman.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started he's always did well and very savvy, but at age 14 or so, I would say, maybe a little bit before that, he started getting into the real estate stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like I said earlier in the previous episode, I started learning. And so the goal was go to fire academy, paramedic school, get on at Longview, and do one property a year. So at the time, the pension for Longview was 20 years, and you were vested, and you could retire. You couldn't get your retirement money at that time, but you could lock it in and wait till your age, which was 50. So I just wanted one property a year, give me 20 properties, 20 years in the fire department, have a fire department pension, and then 20 rental properties.
That was 10 years ago.
Approximately. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're at 90 doors now.
Well, yeah, and so we'll get into that because basically what happened was, so I was, 19 when I graduated from fire academy and EMT school. Got a job with Hallsville Fire Department.
Yeah.
And so they have, paid staff. So I worked there, and the scheduling was a little bit different. So I did, you could do up to 40 or 39 hours because it had to be part-time.
Yeah.
So I would do, 39 hours, and I went to paramedic school. And so I was doing that, paramedic school, and then I was working for an electrical company, wiring new construction houses.
Okay. Who were you working for?
H2.
Okay.
So a guy named Dylan Hawley.
Okay.
So we were wiring all those houses, and I was wiring for, you probably know him, Scott Newland.
Yeah.
So we wired all his houses at the time.
Okay.
So I already had a construction background. I say I had a construction background.
Right, with your dad.
I'd been around it.
Right.
I didn't really do anything.
Yeah, but you around it enough where some of that stuff soaked in.
Right. And so, I was wiring houses, working at the fire department, and then going to paramedic school. Got done with that, and I went and worked. I was still too young to get on at Longview. You had to be 21. So I went over to just outside of Shreveport, Greenwood, and started working there full time. And now I'm doing pretty good. I think it was a $50,000 a year salary at 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, that's some money at that age.
Yeah, that's a good living.
Yeah.
And so I'd already done one deal at this time. I'd bought a double wide trailer as a foreclosure. And I think it was like $28,000.
Okay.
In Hallsville off of 450.
It's a good area.
Yeah. And, it was pretty run down. And so went in there, and we put new flooring in it. I painted it, cleaned up the yard. And, I'm talking about this thing was pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
You know how a trailer gets.
It's typically like the first deal that somebody does that may not have the money to put down or buy something with cash or whatever. Like so, you are just looking for opportunity.
Yeah, so I was able to get into this thing for zero down because I put in my own labor into it, right?
Okay.
And we'll kind of get into how
we'll talk about that because that's a very interesting concept. It's a little bit of a higher level concept.
It's funny, and they've kind of made videos about it now. The BRRRR strategy, right?
Right. Well,
I do a reverse BRRRR.
That's right. Yes, the BRRRR strategy is buy, rehab, and then refinance, rent, and then refinance.
Right.
Well, there's a way to do that without having to do the refinance because when you go through a refinance, you're paying closing costs again, which is another $3 or $4 grand possible.
I remember hearing that on Bigger Pockets. Used to love Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
And I was like, the BRRRR. I was like, I've been doing that for years.
Yeah. What do you call it?
Yeah, I don't.
You just call it the reverse BRRRR.
The Oram method. I don't
know. one time, I'm gonna close on this property one time and get it knocked out.
Yeah. So we got into this property, and I think I was 19. So I just got done with school, working at the fire department, so on. And my mom helped me. She's a clean freak.
Okay.
And we were in there shop backing out the cabinets, just getting piles and piles of roaches. And, I redid the floors. My brother helped me a little bit with the floors. And I mean, I didn't know what I was doing on flooring, but I just did it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I got in there 19. I ended up living there, and then I got a roommate. So another buddy of mine that was working at the fire department with me going to paramedic school, and I just charged him rent.
Yeah.
And it was relatively cheap rent. I think it was and Cody, he might correct me on this, but I think it was $350 or $350 or $400.
That covered your expenses, right?
It covered my mortgage.
Yeah.
And so basically, the only thing I was paying for was property taxes, which were cheap, like $75 a month.
Yep.
Insurance, which was cheap, $50, and then electric.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm talking about I was living for
it's house hacking right there.
Yeah, I was living for like $200 a month.
Yeah. Now, was this in your personal name when you bought this property, or did you have it?
Okay. No, it was in my personal.
So you could technically house hack that, and when you sold that, or if you sold that after 2 years, you don't pay any taxes on it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so
that's one of the best ways to get started.
It is, and there's other ways too, but obviously at 19, I didn't really know. I knew enough, but I didn't know a lot. So obviously, now I know about 1031 exchanges and stuff.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I'm moving forward past that. We got into that and got done with paramedic school. My buddy, Cody, I think he was going to be moving to Tyler.
Okay.
I found another deal on Highway Lake.
Yeah. Right down the road
just
here.
right down the road from here, yep. And, man, it was cheap, like $30,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, pier and beam home on the lake.
Nice.
On the bigger lake out there.
Okay. Which is about 50 acres. It's probably not that big, is it?
No, it's probably like a 10-acre, 12-acre lake
okay.
or something like that. But really cool area. So anyway, got into that, and I went to the bank, and same thing. This was just going to be a flip house, I was just going to be living there. And so now I'm roughly 20 or so a year later, and got into that, and I rented out that double wide.
Okay.
And I think the first time I rented it was for like $950. So I'm cash flowing like, $500, $550, something like that.
Let's go back. Would you agree that it all starts with the deal?
Yeah, I mean, so I remember being so scared buying that place.
These are feelings that I had too on our first couple properties.
I was scared the first 4 or 5 deals that I did.
Yes. There's so much hesitation in there because I think, the number one, you've never done it on your own before. I was in the same position not at 19 years old, at 32 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 38, 39 now. 32 is probably the first real estate deal that I ever did. And I remember coming across some deals that were, when I look back now, it's like, pull a trigger.
Yeah.
What in the world are you waiting on? But you've
never done it before.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, it's an unknown world. So everybody's going to be nervous. And that's what I try to tell everybody. It's like, look, it's scary, but you just got to pull the trigger and do it.
That's right. And you can also, in the last episode, we talked about relationships.
Yeah.
Develop those relationships and leverage those. We're working on a property right now with a couple other people that want to learn real estate and short-term rental. If you don't know something, offer some value to get some value.
Yes.
Get a partner in the deal, and do 1, 2, 3, 4 doors with somebody that knows what the heck they're doing, and then go out and do it on your own.
Yeah. So I never had a partner up until about a year ago.
Okay.
And that was because we'll get into that as a lot bigger deal. But so I got into that flip house on Highway Lake, and like I said, it was about a $30,000 house, maybe 35.
Okay.
And what I learned at that time was the double wide, I got into it for $0 down, but I used my own money to put in new floors and then, tear, sweat, and labor.
Yeah.
This next deal, I learned at the bank that I could do a construction loan.
Mm-hmm.
So I could do a construction loan and have 12 months of interest only, and then it would term out to a 20-year note.
Okay. So I'm going to break that down.
Yeah.
For the listener. What he's talking about is you can have one loan package through a bank, and a lot of times a local bank is the best one to go through for this.
100%.
You cannot do this through a bank that's not in your area typically. And what they will do is give you the money for the purchase of the house, and they will also give you the money for the rehab of the house as long as you have enough equity in that property.
Yep. So they're going to give you 80% of the loan to value, LTV, or 80% of the cost, whichever comes in cheaper.
Yes.
So, and we'll get into how I do my spreadsheets, but, and some people are probably wondering, well, how did you get into it? How did you get a bank to finance you at 19? Well, I ran it kind of like a business. It was in my personal name. It wasn't under my business name because I didn't have an LLC at the time. But I was able to go to the bank, and I had 2 jobs at the time. But I went to the bank, and I showed them that, hey, I'm going to rent this thing out. And so we were able to look at the numbers of, well, your mortgage is going to be this,
right?
Taxes, insurance, and then I was going to rent it for the $350 to $400.
Yeah.
And so they looked at it like a business, and I went to, I think, 3 different banks, and the first 2 were like, dude,
somebody will say yes.
Yeah, they're like, dude, you're 19 years old. We're not giving you any money. Like, they're like, you need a cosigner, and like, I didn't want a cosigner, and mom and dad weren't going to cosign for me because then now that debt goes onto their name, and that's going to affect his buying power or her buying power. Yeah. So finally, I went over to a bank, and they gave me a shot at 19 years old, and I've been with that same bank now for the remainder of the almost 10 years.
There's something else I want to point out here, that the way the bank views you is important in your deals, and there's the main way that the bank views people that are getting loans is by their W-2 income. So you had that.
I did have a W-2.
Yeah.
And that helped me for quite a few years.
Yes. Now, on the flip side of that, I haven't had a W-2 income for a while now. And so our first couple real estate deals were hard to get done because the bank looks at, if you don't have a W-2, the bank looks at you like you don't have steady income. Even though I'm taking these deals to the bank and I'm saying, hey, we're going to buy this property for $80, we're going to put $50 in it, and I'm going to rent the thing for $1,800 a month. Those numbers work out really well. Yep. Then when we get done, the property's going to be worth $200,000. So there's there's $70,000 of equity there. Like, that is a no-brainer for me in my head. But the bank's like, well, you don't have guaranteed income.
Yep.
Like, what?
And it all depends, like what you said, it depends on the bank and the relationship with the bank.
Yes.
Because some banks
relationship is huge.
And some banks will look at it like, well, this is a business deal. So we know this is going to rent out, and it's a good deal.
If you're going to play this game.
Right. But then other banks are looking at it like they're just banking on you instead of banking on the deal.
Yes. You better, if you're going to play this deal, you better know what the bank wants.
Yes.
At some point, as you grow and develop relationships and create your own basis of cash and all that stuff, the game changes. But in the beginning, you better know. You better understand how they view you.
And obviously, getting started, for anybody out there listening, it's very beneficial to have a full-time job to get started. And
or a co-signer with a full-time job.
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't going to do that.
Yeah, you got to have that co-signer. So
yeah, you're going to have to offer something to get that. Just for somebody to put their name on a piece of paper, right? You're going to have to offer them some equity or something. Yeah,
unless mommy and daddy are willing to do it.
That's right.
But I don't know a lot of people whose parents are willing to do that.
Yeah.
But, so just going forward, I got into that flip house.
Okay.
And I'm renting out that double wide now for the $950. Mm-hmm. Well, now I have an interest-only note at $30,000, and I think I did a $20,000 construction loan on top of that. So $50,000 loan total.
Yeah.
But day one, they're paying for the house. So now I'm paying interest on $30,000. And the house is livable. So I'm living there now.
Okay.
And I'm living there, and I basically just go into the first room and I, make it nice.
Yeah.
And I'm living rent-free now.
Yeah.
Because my cash flow from the double wide is paying for this house.
Paying for your interest.
Right. And so I'm paying interest on $30,000. And let's just say the second weekend, I'm like, okay, it's time to go buy some more material or, whatever it is.
You just go, at that point, you go to the bank and you get your draw.
Yeah. I email the bank and say, hey, I need a draw for $5,000.
Yeah.
And, you'd break it out, obviously, be like, I did a new roof for $5,000. I did painting for $2,500 or whatever it was. And you would take that out. And now you're paying interest on $32,000 or $35,000.
Right.
Whatever
As you draw, you pay the interest on that amount, the total.
So obviously an interest payment on $30,000 is almost nothing.
Yeah. And
so I'm still actually cash flowing at this point by getting the double wide rent, paying for the lake house, and I still got a little bit left over.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I lived there for, I think, about a year. And that's actually where me and my wife lived. That was our first house.
Okay.
So we lived for about a year and a half. And a guy knocks on my door, and he says, hey, do you want to sell? And I said, everything's always for sale.
It is for sale.
Yeah.
If the number's right.
That's right. So I sell it.
Okay.
And we just go on from there.
All right. So You paid 30 for it.
Yeah.
You put 20 in it.
Yeah, I had 50.
What'd you sell it for?
I think we sold it for like 110.
Okay, so you're walking
In
away
a
with
year.
60 grand.
60 grand in a year at 20 years old.
That's a big chunk.
Plus 2 other jobs. And so I took that money and I bought where we live at now. I bought almost 10 acres.
Okay.
And I rolled that money into that property.
Yeah.
Now, I still didn't know about 1031 exchanges and things like that.
Okay, we'll get into that. It's a little bit advanced. I have not done one yet, but we're probably about to.
Yeah.
Walk me through. I think if somebody's wanting to get in to real estate, what's the first thing you tell them? What's your biggest piece of advice?
Research.
Okay.
So, I mean, it should all be kind of simultaneous, right? So, if you want to get into real estate, you need to be doing your own research, whether it be you need to be YouTubing. I mean, there's so many videos out there. There's so many podcasts and things like that you can be listening to.
Hey, give us some, because there is some stuff out there that's not really relevant or great.
I'll talk about one, and don't get me wrong, he'll get you pumped up.
Yeah.
And you probably know who I'm talking about. Grant Cardone.
Yes.
Huge real estate guy, right?
Huge.
But I compare him to the Dave Ramsey of the stock market.
Okay.
And so he's just a bit extreme. But he will get you pumped up. If anybody talks about real estate or listen to something, they're always, man, Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
And he will get you in the mood of, man, I got to do some real estate.
That's a motivator.
Yes.
That's not the realm he's in is not where you're going to be.
Right. So, but back in the day, I always really liked bigger pockets. And so they'd bring on guys more of like myself or you that were getting started, not only necessarily getting started, but in it for a couple of years, and they've done well.
Yeah.
And they would break it down really well.
So watch or listen to older, bigger pocket stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I like bigger pockets. A guy named Ken McElroy, he's really good.
Okay.
He's a bit more advanced, so he's using some pretty big terms. Yeah. You're going to learn a lot.
So just start inundating yourself with information. It's not all going to sink in.
Because I would listen to like podcasts every day for hours on end.
Yeah.
Not a huge reader, but I can watch a YouTube video.
Yeah, the information, you just have to just start getting it in there, and the situations that come along when you start doing it, it'll start to sink in. The other thing you said off air was you just go find a deal.
You got to just find a deal. So that's my advice would be, you got to be doing it all simultaneously. If you think you want to do real estate, you need to be already YouTubing it and saying, okay, let's get some information. Yep. But at the same time, while you're listening to that podcast, I'd be on like realtor.com or Zillow and looking at deals. And maybe if I'm not even ready to pull the trigger on something, you should know the market. So like, what is a house going for in Longview, Texas? Yeah. What is an older house going for? What is a newer house going for? And what's something updated? What is it going for?
Why do you need to know that?
Well, because you got to know your market. You want to know if you have a good deal or not.
Yeah.
And so when I was getting started, there was a lot more better deals out there.
Yeah.
And so, I knew that I could buy a house for X, put X into it, rent it out for this, and be cash flowing.
Yeah. So if I bring a deal to you and I say, Bradon, I'm looking at this deal, how are you going to tell me to evaluate that deal to make sure if I should do it or not?
Well, it really depends on the property type. So if it's a single family home, then it's just different. So a single family home
that's
is
how
like,
most people start, right? So, So how are we going to look at that deal?
Well, you got to know. So what's the house selling for, right? Okay. And so right now, obviously, everything's selling for a very high price. But with that said, rents are up.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And so, a single family home is going to sell for what it's going to sell for. It doesn't go off a cap rate, and we can get into that later. Yeah. It's kind of more for bigger deals.
Yeah. I think most people that are going to watch this are probably not going to, if you're just starting, they ain't getting any cap rate.
And my model starting out was I went for cheaper homes. Okay. And that was because my thought on it is that I can always rent that house out.
Yeah.
Somebody always has to rent a house out for under $1,000. Now at the time, people were buying, $150,000, $200,000 houses and renting them out, but that was $1,800 to $2,000 a month.
What you're saying is, if you have a house that you can rent for $1,000 or under, it's going to rent like that. 100%. You're not going to have any lag time.
That's in my opinion, yes. No, I feel like if the economy goes down
in this area, you're right. Yeah. You're 100% right. If there's a house on the market right now, if a house is on the market in our area in Longview or Hallsville, in a decent area, say a 2.2 or 3.2, and it's $1,500 or less, is going to rent out in one day.
Right. So now it would be like that $1,500 or less mark, right?
Yeah.
But when I was starting, it was under 1,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And so, my thought was, hey, if the economy drops, which houses are going to go vacant first? And in my mind is the $2,000 a month rent. And that was back then. So now it would be like the $2,500 a month rent. But, for me, I was like, man, if you get upon hard times, well, it's first thing somebody's going to do is I got to get rid of this big house and go to a smaller house to start saving money.
Yep.
And so I knew that I had under $1,000 and I had room to drop my rents too.
Okay.
So I always knew it'd pay for itself. Because remember, at this time, I'm still working at the fire department.
Yeah.
So I had a steady income.
Yeah.
To
You're not relying on the income that you're creating from real estate.
I just need to break even.
Also, there's appreciation in there too. Your houses are going to appreciate.
Well, you get appreciation and you get depreciation on the taxes side.
Yeah.
And so that was huge.
So, okay, I bring this deal to you, and where are you even starting from to tell me, like, Shane?
Well, first thing, so let's just keep it simple. Purchase price.
Okay.
Are you putting money down or you're not? I don't put money down. I have to have something that needs work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everything I buy is going to have something that has what we call value add.
Yeah.
So it needs a paint job. It needs a new roof. It needs new flooring, plumbing, whatever it is. And that's up to whoever you are and how much work you want to take on. But it's got to have value add for my model.
Yeah.
And
now whether you can, there's two ways to value add and still stay under your, what I call the equity line. I don't know if anybody else uses that term, but the 80% equity line of if a house is going to be worth in the real estate industry, ARV after repair value, if it's $100,000, well, then you're looking at, can I get this thing up to par for $80,000 or less?
Right.
So we're looking at those numbers, right? Now, the important thing that you said earlier is know your market, because if you don't know your market, you don't know what that projected ARV is going to be.
And some people get ahead of themselves and they think, well, I can increase the value of this house even though it's in a bad area.
Yeah.
And, with the appraisal company, maybe, but what can it really sell for?
Right. And so much of this depends, those numbers, you want to take your numbers and work backwards, right?
Yep.
So you know what your market is, and you do your best to guess before this deal goes to the bank of what you think it's going to be worth based on your market. And this is where having a good relationship with a real estate agent can help too, because they can pull comps for you on the deal. A lot of them won't do it for free.
Yep.
Like they want to sell you something. But if you have a really good relationship with a real estate agent, then they'll help you out. And then you start working backwards, right? Of, okay, I'm paying, this is $100,000 ARV. I've done my research. I know my market. It's going for $100 a square foot or whatever. And now I'm working backwards. I'm going to pay $35,000 for it, and that gives me $45,000 of room.
Yep.
Now, in reality, you want to try to keep it.
You want to keep it lower.
Right,
or,
if possible.
You could do like what we were talking about earlier, the Burr method reversed. Yeah. And if you know that thing's going to appraise out for $100,000, the bank's willing to give you $80,000, and you pick that house up for $35,000, and you only really need $20,000.
Yeah,
that's only at $55,000. Well, you still got, the $25,000 spread there. That, hey, you can draw that out and pay yourself.
Yes,
if you want to, and you can use that next money for a deal.
Yep. So you can value add by doing work yourself, or it's still a value add. It's a value add to do any work on the property, but a value add to where you can do things like that and draw out money to pay yourself.
Right.
You can also do it by contracting it yourself. You're not going to save near as much, but you will save some.
Yep. And back then I was a one-man show.
Okay.
So, I did everything from start to finish.
Yeah. Listen, I learned after my first couple of deals that if I'm on the property working, I'm losing money.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
And for me, I was able to save so much money, I would pay myself that extra money that was left over in the loan. And it's tax-free money. It's
right.
It's a loan.
Isn't that okay? This is interesting. I was talking to somebody yesterday about this. A loan is tax-free money.
Yeah.
The house will continue to appreciate. So let's say, during the process, you took the loan, you had an extra $10,000 in your loan draw money that you can pay yourself. And then 10, 15 years down the road, that house is appreciated. You've paid yourself, paid
that note down.
You paid that note down. And now say that $100,000 house is worth $200,000.
Yep.
and you've paid it down to 50 in 10 years, you got room there to pull.
You can do a refi.
You can do a refi, pull the money out, and that is tax-free.
Yes.
No taxes.
And that's the beauty of real estate.
Yeah. All at the same time, you're depreciating the asset.
Right.
That's some good stuff right there.
Absolutely.
So bringing your first deal that you did, or from that first deal to now, what are some things that you would encourage? Like, how would you instruct? What would you tell somebody
as far as how to break down a deal?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, so let's just keep it simple. Everybody's got access to the internet, right?
Yeah.
So you get on Realtor, you find a house in a decent area, and it is going for X. So do you have money to put down, number one? If not, it's okay. Find a value add and go get a construction loan. Fix it up, put the labor in yourself. But so to keep it simple, we're going to do, you find a house for $100,000.
Yeah.
First thing I'm going to do is just get on mortgage calculator.
Yeah.
How much is the loan for $100,000?
Yep.
Okay. It's X. And then I need insurance, X, taxes, insurance.
Yeah, you can look up taxes on the CAD.
There's your three right there.
Yep.
You need all those right there. Those are your bottom line expenses. Now, you're going to have more expenses on top of that, whether it be maintenance, vacancy, whatever. But if you're doing maintenance yourself, then it's going to be relatively low.
Yeah.
Air conditioner might go out, so you need to still save some money. But I would always do 15% for maintenance and vacancy because I was doing maintenance myself.
Yep.
So then I would take that. And the 15% is of the gross rent. So that's your next step is you've got how much the mortgage is going to be, how much taxes are, how much insurance is. Now you need to figure out what is this house going to rent for.
And that's part of knowing your market too. Again,
knowing your market. And what I would do back in the day is I would just call reliable management.
Okay.
Hey, do y'all have any houses over here in this area?
There you go. There's your hack right there.
Yeah, we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on this street.
It's comparable to what you got.
Right. Okay, that's 3 blocks away from me.
Right. What's it
renting for? They would tell me. I'd say, okay, and I'd write that down. Boom.
That's like any business. It's like when you get into something that you don't know much about, if it's a service business or whatever, just call and get a quote from somebody else.
And so at that time, again, it wasn't all about cash flow for me. It was about a long-term investment of just paying down the property. And so, I still wanted a cash flow. It still had to have
absolutely.
something. But, if it was cash flowing just $200 a door, I was good with that.
Yeah.
And that's after maintenance, vacancy, taxes, mortgage, insurance.
And that's so taking that and a step further into short-term rentals, all those expenses that you talked about. If you're doing short-term rentals instead of long-term rentals, you need to add in extra stuff like what's your electric bill going to be every month, what's your water and trash bill going to be, how much is your lawn care, what's your internet cost.
And those are all things that I'm learning about the short-term stuff right now because I have not done one up to this point.
Yeah. Well, when you're ready.
You're the man.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm the man, but we have experience.
Yeah.
So, and there's things that happen on a short-term rental that don't typically happen on a long-term rental that you have to prepare for that we're still learning, through the properties that we have. Let's talk about, you mentioned something earlier that's super intriguing. You said you don't put money down on houses.
Well, it was like what we were talking about earlier, right? So the banks are going to loan 80% of the value of the house or of the cost.
Explain that.
So whenever I'm doing a house, and remember we're going to put this on a construction note, so I have to have a value add deal. It needs paint, roof, flooring, whatever the case is. So when I go into a home, let's say the house was, back in the day, all the houses I bought were in the $30,000 to $40,000 range.
Let's make it an even number. Let's say, just to keep it simple, that the ARV is $100,000. So work back from there.
Yeah. So the bank's going to give you $80,000.
They will. What do you got? What are you telling them to?
You got to run your spreadsheet up, right?
Okay.
So the bank again is going to give you 80% of the appraised value or of the cost. The cost meaning
the lower of those two.
Yes.
Okay.
So that means that if you buy a house, let's just use the same thing. $100,000. So you buy the house for $50,000. And it's a value add deal.
Okay.
So that means you got to run your numbers up. So you're getting quotes from contractors, right? Mm-hmm. All your subcontractors. And the painter says, hey, it's going to cost me $5,500 to paint this house.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me $6,500 to floor it, $8,000 to roof it. need some appliances.
You're getting outside bids for this to see what it would actually cost, not what it's going to cost you.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So if I was to go and have somebody do it 100% for me, what is it going to cost?
Yeah.
And so for simplicity's sake, buy the house for 50 and everything costs $50,000 to redo this house.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a total price of purchase price construction is $100,000.
Yeah.
Now, in my experience, every appraisal company comes back at what you turn in.
For
the most part.
85 to 90% of the time, within reason.
Within reason. It might be 98,000,
right.
92,000, or it might be 105,000.
Yep.
So now the bank's going to say, okay, you turned in a spreadsheet of $100,000 total.
That's the ARV that you projected, right?
Yep. And so we can use two scenarios. You turned in $100,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's say the appraisal came back at 105. The bank's going to give you 80,000 because they're going to give you the 80% of the cost, which was 100. That's what you turned in.
Yeah.
Now let's use the other scenario of, well, the appraisal came in low. It came in at 92,000. Now they're going to give you the 80% of the 92,000.
Yeah. Okay. This is why it's so important to know your market.
Yes.
Because if you guess wrong, I say guess, educated guess based on experience.
Yep.
If that number that you said this house is going to be worth when I'm done with it is wrong, you risk two things. You risk not getting enough money, or you risk losing the difference.
Yeah, or losing the deal.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have any money, and so now you've lost a deal, and now you're making a reputation for yourself of this guy can't close deals.
Yep.
And that's not good either.
No. Why?
Well, who wants to do business with that?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, buying a house and going through the closing and talking to banks and doing all that stuff, it's not a short process. And so you're tying up a buyer for, let's just say, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's 6 weeks that maybe they were counting on that money, or they had another deal pending. Maybe they were doing a 1031 exchange and they need that money now to roll over to their next deal. And now you just delayed that process.
Yep.
Now things do happen, and most business guys, they understand that things don't close when they're supposed to, especially right now.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be the guy that can't close. You take 8 weeks, and then all of a sudden you say, hey, man, I can't do it.
Yeah. That's bad on two parts. That's bad on your reputation with your seller.
And your realtor.
And with 3 parts, and your realtor and your bank.
Yep.
Because all 3 of those guys were working for you to try to get this deal closed.
Yep. And time is money.
That's right. And so now you put everybody in a bad position because you didn't know your deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hardly even used realtors for probably my first 5 years, 6 years of business.
So you're finding deals off market.
Off market deals.
How are you finding deals off market?
Man, honestly, I'll just be driving around.
Yeah. Call it driving for dollars.
Yep.
Drive around, look at a property. If it looks like it's
Craigslist, man, back in the day.
Yeah.
I found quite a few houses on Craigslist.
It's not there anymore, but
Facebook now, you got Marketplace, but so that's how
there's
I
so
find my
much
deals.
there's so much media now that it's harder to find a deal, right? Because somebody can post a deal on Facebook and it's gone like that. If you need to know your market so that you can jump on those deals, because you may only have a day or 2 days to really get a deal and get a contract signed on it. So you need to be ready.
You got to be quick.
And
especially now. Back then you could have a little bit more lag time.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you don't have that time now.
No, and even if it was a great deal back then, you still had to jump on it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And that was kind of part of the closing
too.
process was, hey, I'll give you this much money and I'll close in 4 weeks.
Right.
And you get a little bit better deal.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to close in 4 weeks now. It's possible, but it's difficult.
It's hard to even get the appraisal back in 4 weeks now.
Yeah. So knowing your market, knowing your deals, very important. That's why Bradon was talking about doing that research on the front end, so that way when a deal does come up, you can jump on it. It all also...
And that was my business model back then, was I knew that any 3-bedroom, 2-bath house I could sell for $100,000.
Right.
$90,000 to $100,000.
You had an exit strategy on every property that you, and that's kind of how we evaluate deals. We'll go backwards from the ARV that we project and evaluate, okay, what are we going to put into this on this $100,000 deal? We're going to have 80 total, 75 or 80 total in it. And then, worst case scenario, first I want to short-term rent it. Mm-hmm. Second, I'm making sure that if the short-term rental doesn't work, that the long-term rental will work.
Will it work?
And third, if I have to exit this deal or sacrifice this cow, right? People talk about, you know, if you got a herd of cows and you're running short on funds and you got 100 cows out there, well, sell 2 of them.
Yeah.
You know, so you can get yourself in a better financial position. If I have to sacrifice this cow, am I going to make some money on it?
Yep.
And if you check all 3 of those boxes, then you got a deal.
Yeah, and so, you know, in the beginning, I didn't know a lot. I just knew that I needed some long-term rentals to create that wealth for when I do want to retire.
Yep.
And that was the way that I knew. And it stuck in my head, man. It's simple.
Yeah.
I don't understand the stock market.
No.
It's not tangible. It's not real.
Right.
I can go drive by my property and say, hey, there's $40,000 sitting there.
That's real money sitting there that I can
touch it.
I can get that money if I need to within a month or 6 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. Another thing about finding deals is relationships. You know, I found through meeting and knowing guys in the real estate industry like you, Genty. We'll bring some deals every once in a while. Actually, we bought a few from him that on market, off market. If it's a deal, it's a deal.
Yep.
Typically, when they go on market, they're not a deal anymore.
Usually, most of the good things are already sold.
That's right. But those relationships, we've closed several in the past couple months one of them we bought 4 or 5 properties all together, just from knowing somebody at church and having a trusted relationship with them. Like, I would say the majority of our best deals have come from personal relationships.
Word of mouth. Man.
Yep.
It works well.
Yep.
So where were we at? Sold the lake house.
Yes.
So we bought that land.
Yep.
It's a small shop house, 500 square foot living quarters, lived there and kept moving. And again, my goal at this point is still, I only have 1 rental now because I sold the lake house, right?
Yeah, so you got your double wide.
Yep. So now it's like, okay.
You're a year and a half in at this point from
Yeah.
your real estate journey?
Roughly,
Okay.
yeah. So now I'm approximately, I'm probably 21 or so. And, all right, just 1 property a year. So we dive in, and I go to, next deal was over in White Oak.
Okay.
Same scenario, $35,000 house, put 20 into it, have a loan of $55,000. That was my business model. Rented out for $950.
Yeah.
So 1 a year, I did that. Took me 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with the other 10 months?
Right, yeah. Now
I've already
getting okay at this process.
I've already hit my 1, and cool. Well, now look for another deal. Oh, yeah. There's another deal.
Yeah.
Now I've got 2 in 6 months, and it just keeps on snowballing. And 1 year, man, I think I was 21 or 22. I did 18 doors in 1 year.
Man, so me and my brother sat down at the beginning of 2022 and came up with a goal. And we said for short-term rental, we focus on short-term rental because we're starting to understand it pretty well. We still want to do 22 doors in 22.
Yep.
And about a month later, we were like, we're going to kill ourselves.
Well, so how I got to the 18 doors was I got away from the single family.
Okay.
I ended up, same thing, Craigslist.
Okay.
I found a deal in Pine Tree for 2 duplexes.
Okay.
So there's 4 doors right there.
Yeah.
So I get 2 duplexes, and I got them for dirt cheap. $90,000 for 2 duplexes.
Man.
And even then, that was really, really cheap.
Yeah.
And I got a loan. I think I did the same process, construction loan, I want to say of maybe $65,000.
Okay.
So I believe my note was somewhere around the 155, 150 for both duplexes. So
yeah,
cash cow.
Yeah.
So I did those 4, and I'm doing everything myself. One man show. So I'm painting, I'm plumbing, I'm reflooring. I might find a guy on the side of the road that needs some work.
Yeah.
And pay them, $80 a day or $100 a day.
Yeah.
And it probably really cost me more than the help that they actually gave.
I know,
but
been there.
Whatever, trim some bushes, cut the trees, cut grass, whatever they can do. So anyway, I did those 4, and now I found another deal. Same thing, Craigslist. It was 6 duplexes over on Harrell Avenue. Not a great area.
Yeah.
Pretty rough.
Yeah.
And again, I'm 22 years old. So, I go over there. I get the loan. Same thing, construction loan, 1 closing. And I've got a lot more money this time to put into
Rehab
it. And needed it. They're
Yeah.
all pier and beam homes built in like 1950. All of them were duplexes.
Okay.
And when you talk about a trap house,
That was it.
every one of them.
Okay.
I mean, every one of them. So I'm 22 years
Oh,
old.
I looked at these.
Yeah.
You had them for sale not too long ago. Me and
Yeah.
Genty drove by and looked at them.
And
And I was
so-
like, I don't think I'm ready for that.
So, I mean, they were still, rough.
Yeah.
But from what I had done to them, I mean, they looked 10 times better.
Okay.
So 22 years old, go in there, they're all probably 80% occupancy. Maybe a little less than that, but the people that were there were rough. They weren't paying rent.
Okay.
Dealing drugs,
Yeah.
prostitution, the whole 9 yards. So I'm 22, go in there. I start passing out eviction notices.
Yeah.
And still a one-man show, so I'm just knocking on doors. Hey, where's my rent? Oh, you ain't got it? Well, here you go. Here's your 3-day. Here's your 3-day. Here's your 3-day. And you're talking about, again, 22 years old, and you got some grown men or even grown women. I mean, some of them women can be.
Yeah.
And they were not happy.
I'd imagine.
And I didn't have a beard. Obviously, I was working at the fire department. So looked at,
Yeah.
baby face. I was fresh shaven. I might have had a mustache at the
I
time.
don't know who you are, but you are not kicking me out of my house.
Oh,
that
yeah.
I'm not paying rent on, but you're not kicking me out.
Yeah, it's one of those deals.
But 6 years ago, it's probably a little bit easier to get somebody out than it is now.
Yeah, the process is still about the same. But yeah, back then was 3-day. You'll pay your filing your eviction fee, which was I think it's $150.
Okay.
2 weeks later, you get your court notice. But what I found is, and I still use this today, is hey, I'm evicting you. So you have two options. We can either go through the eviction process and you will be out of here, or you be out by Friday, get all your crap out of here, somewhat clean it up, and I'll give you $200.
Okay. That $200 sounds pretty good for somebody who don't have rent money.
And they're getting evicted no matter what.
Yeah.
So that works
Okay.
8-9 times out of 10.
Okay.
And that's what I did over
Did
there.
you just try it and see if it would work, or did somebody give you that idea?
YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, YouTube, man. This,
the information.
Again, I mean, I'm doing properties that like Dad called me crazy for doing these.
Yeah.
So he's like, dude, man, like, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
He thought I was nuts.
Yeah.
He's like, this is not the kind of property that you want to get into.
Yeah.
He's like,
A lot of
he's
hassle.
like, man, you're 22 years old. You're going down here with the big boys.
Yeah.
I mean, this is slumlord stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, for real trap houses.
Yeah. And you're cleaning out needles
Yeah.
and stuff.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, I just always kind of liked that kind of.
Yeah. You got to have
stuff.
some grit in you if you're
Yeah.
going to do that kind of deal.
Yeah. And
You
so
better be ready.
I was somewhat used to it anyway, working at the fire department and stuff, and you're going to
Yeah.
pretty bad areas. And so I resonated with them. I don't know. I
Yeah.
liked it.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I would get new tenants in there, I'm not saying they were the best tenants. They're still probably pretty rough, but we got along really
Yeah.
well. I
As
could
long
talk.
as you pay your rent.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk with them, and we'd BS around, and we'd joke around because I was out there all the time.
Yeah.
So I got them all out, and then I'm doing foundation work,
Yeah.
replumbing them, rewiring them, put central air into them,
Yeah.
and then I would re-rent them out. And man, I mean, that deal there really gave me a lot of cash flow,
Okay.
and so
It's sometimes the deals that a lot of times the deals that other people don't want to touch. There's
Yeah.
good cash flow there.
well, most definitely, so the more cash flow you're making, usually going to be in a crappier area.
Yeah, you're talking about like if you're ranking those, they rank them from like A to D.
A to D.
You're talking about these
So
like
these
C
were-
minus to D.
These were a D property
Okay.
when I first got them. I would say I raised them to probably a C plus.
Okay.
So for the listeners out there, an A property is going to be, that's brand new construction.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that can be an A property is
Okay.
brand new construction.
Okay.
So then you got a B property, and that's going to be a property that's maybe 10 years old, in good shape, good tenants, good area.
Yeah.
That can be a B minus or a B plus.
Yeah.
And you can always raise your properties up, but you can really only raise them up one class. So like mine were a
Okay.
D property. I raised them to probably a C plus.
Gotcha.
They could never be a B
Okay.
unless something crazy happened and like the whole city of Longview started coming over to that side of
Right.
town.
We call it gentrification.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
basically you're tearing down, build new houses, or completely.
It has to be a complete gut job. Now you can maybe get into a B class property.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you can raise it one class. And so that's what I did. So that was my 18 doors at 22 years old
Yeah.
in 1 year's time. And that kind of started my.
Did you have an opportunity to take any other deals when you were working on that?
Dude, I mean, I wasn't looking for deals. I was legitimately. So remember, I'm fireman at this point.
Yeah.
And so I'm working 24-hour shifts, 72 hours off. So every third day. Or not 72, I'm sorry. 24/48.
Okay.
I wish it would have been 72. That'd been awesome.
Yeah.
So every third day I'm working a 24-hour shift, and you know I'm on the ambulance the majority of the time.
Okay.
And so you're up most of the night. You know, I mean, Longview's a very, very busy fire department, and so you know we'd be up 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep, 4 if you're lucky. You know, some kind of thing. And you would get some nights you would get to sleep all night.
Yeah.
But very rare. Get up in the morning, 7 o'clock, get off shift, and I'm going across the street working on my properties all day, and then go home, sleep. Next day, back at it.
Do it again.
Next day, fire department. Next day, back at the rental.
Yeah.
Back at the rental.
So you understood at that time that you had all you can handle.
Oh yeah, I mean, I probably had more than I could handle.
Yeah.
In all reality.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gone, working at all times.
That's just part of that's just that young bravado. He's like,
Yeah,
I can just work all the time.
I was talking to one of my old fire captains just the other day, and he's like, "Man, you missing the fire department?" I'm like, and yeah, I mean, I do miss the fire department at times, but I'm like, dude, I was like, I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how I would go with no sleep anymore.
I know I could.
I mean, I don't know how I did it even then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you are in those situations, like if you had to do that for a short period of time today, like you could do it.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't want to.
Man, I mean, what I was doing was I'd get off the fire department and I would take pre-workout.
Okay.
And I would put a full scoop into a water bottle, and I would sip on it till about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
Yeah. And
that would keep me going.
Okay.
Then I'd go eat lunch, and then I would take another scoop of pre-workout.
This is like,
I mean, I was
instead of Adderall.
Yeah, I was like cracked out.
You just go.
I mean, I was like in zombie mode, man.
All right, so we're running out of time, but how did you get from there to where you are now? Like, quick rundown.
So, you know, just real fast. Those are my big deals right there that got me going at 22.
Okay.
And then, you know, just kept on moving forward. More deals. At that time, I was like, okay, well, one deal a year, it's not enough.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what's your new goal? And I said, I don't know, whatever. I'll just go until I don't want to go anymore.
Right.
And so I just kept on moving forward, and got in some new construction stuff, kind of found a new niche for me.
Yeah.
So I could find some vacant lots relatively cheap. You know, I'd stay under $5,000 a lot.
Yeah.
Get those, and I would build a new construction house.
Okay.
The niche was 1,200 square feet, and the goal at the time was to rent them for $1,200.
So 1,200 square feet, 3.2 or 2.2?
3.2.
Okay.
Yeah, 3.2. Rent them for $1 a square foot, which would give me $1,200 to $1,250 a month in rent. Not a whole lot of cash flow, but it was still like $250 because I could build them for pretty cheap.
And new construction will appreciate.
Yeah, and so now that's changed. You know, I have to pay a little bit more for a lot, a little bit more on construction side, but I can rent them for about $1,700.
So your model now with the new construction, we've talked about this a little bit, but tell me why you kind of transitioned your niche.
So new construction, I got to the point I had so many old properties that I couldn't keep up with the maintenance.
Okay.
And I was having to give it to a management company to keep up with things. So I was at the fire department still. Yeah. My wife was working full-time as a teacher. And, man, the maintenance just got to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
I couldn't do any more deals and do the maintenance.
That's kind of where we're getting to with the short-term rental because, you know, instead of having a 30 or 40 doors or whatever on long-term rental and the maintenance starting to overwhelm or 50 or 60, that number starts to become like 15 or 20.
Yep.
Because there's so many people in and out of it all the time.
So I basically said, okay, let's switch up something here, and let's go to new construction. Cash flow will be relatively the same, and I'll have zero maintenance. And whatever maintenance there is, you know, the first couple of years is all under warranty with all my subcontractors, so AC, plumbing, electrical, you know, the whole 9 yards.
And you also know you've developed a process enough to know almost exactly what it's going to cost for you to build that, right?
Yeah, and I'm still doing the same process with the bank of zero money down, blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. So I'm doing a lot of work myself, painting,
so what Bradon's saying is he's putting so much sweat equity into these properties and building them for under cost that the bank will finance the full amount that he needs to do it. Yes. Now, if you were hiring somebody else to contract it out, you probably wouldn't have.
No, you'd probably be putting money in.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was kind of my new business model was new construction. Okay.
So you kind of went through the process of getting rid of some of the older stuff, right?
Started selling the older stuff, and that was really in the past 2 years. So at this point, quit the fire department at I believe it's been 2 years now. So I was about 27. I'll be 29 in September. So yeah, I was 27 when I quit the fire department, and I just couldn't keep up with everything that I was doing. So quit the fire department and just took off. A year later, had my wife quit teaching because I was either going to hire a secretary or have her do it, and she could keep the kids home a little bit more from daycare, and we could have a little bit more free time. Yeah, which we haven't got a whole lot of free time.
No, go with your mindset.
Yeah. So
you enjoy working.
Yeah.
Though, right.
Yeah, I do enjoy working. Well, I'm trying to get away from the physical. Labor, but I like keeping my mind going. So finding new deals, just working the mind. I really like that side of things. But so anyway, so doing the new construction stuff, and then I get a call about a big deal in Texarkana. 60 units, and I was like, ooh, it's a big one. Yeah. And I said, oh, I've never done anything like that. I mean, same process, same deal. Yeah. Bigger numbers. Yeah. So let's do it. I had a buddy of mine. We worked at the fire department together. He had quit recently too, and him and I'd always talked about it, doing rental property. But hey, man, you see that apartment complex over there? I'd be like, yeah. I said, man, here's the cool thing about an apartment complex is they're going to be going off a cap rate. So a cap rate is just your return of money. Yeah. And I'd say, okay, let's say you bought that apartment complex over there for $2 million, and let's say your gross rents were $20,000 a month or whatever they are. But you increase those rents by $100 a door, dude, you just made a lot of money because now it's still going to sell for the same cap rate, and all you did was increase rents. So this same guy, he quit the fire department, and he had a business partner, and I didn't really know this other guy at the time, and now we've all become pretty good buddies, obviously. Yeah. But I couldn't do this deal
by
myself.
Yeah,
wow. I mean, it was close. So the banking laws kind of changed, right? And you didn't used to have the cash in the bank.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I'm following you.
So
you just got to show.
You got to. The bank wants to see that. They may not want you to physically put down the 20%, but they want to see that you have the 20%. Right. Yeah. And so when I first started, that wasn't the case. You didn't have to have really anything.
And that so many people, you can get around that if you know people that you can either have the money or have access to the money,
or you can have some equity in something, whatever it is. Yeah. But so things started changing, and so you had to have that full amount in cash for this deal, and it was still a really good deal, but it was a lot of deferred maintenance. Yeah, my bread and butter. Yeah. So I went to these guys, and they were already looking for rental property. Said, look, I've got a deal. I was like, I know y'all are in business with each other. I was like, but here's the deal. I can't do this on my own because I don't have the equity. Yeah. I was like, so what do you say we all three just partner up? Yeah. And they said, well, basically let's look at the deal. And so, I printed it all off, and I showed my numbers and, showed them what's going on. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So we did it. And so we got into these 60 units for zero money down. Okay.
That's a big deal.
Absolutely.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
You had relationships with people.
Same bank. Yeah. Relationships.
Relationship with a bank, relationship with other guys that had the available cash to show that y'all had it.
We were able to put all our money together, and we looked great. And and also I had a track record with my bank, so they saw my track record running from the last 7-8 years of what I've grown into and what I can do, and they know that, hey, we believe in this guy, he can make this happen. Yeah, and we did. So we've had it for a little over a year now, and we've increased rents, and we've done some value add stuff, and we've cleaned up.
So if you sold it today, what kind of profits do you think you would realize?
I mean, man, we could sell it and make $500,000, $700,000.
That's good. I mean, you look at a deal.
Now that's split up between 3 people, but still, I mean, who wouldn't want to make that kind of return in 12 months? Yeah,
yeah. If you can, a lot of what you've talked about today is value add.
I'm not necessarily big on. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody wants cash flow. Yeah. But I'm about that bottom line number of equity and what you're worth.
Yeah. Net worth.
worth.
Yeah, and when you buy deals and you can add value to those deals, your net worth is going to increase substantially.
Yep. I mean, I try to really, the banks want to be at 80% loan to value. I really try to be at 65, 70.
Yeah.
if not lower.
Yeah.
Like I said, I really like that bottom line number. I want to see that grow year over year over year.
Yeah. So, like within the past 3 years, my personal or my family unit net worth has it's more than doubled just because of real estate. That's the only, because we're adding value to these properties that we find a good deal, just like you, add value to them, have a pretty good bit of equity in most of them that we finish. And the more the bank's looking at that. The bank is looking at that spread.
You know, it depends on who you're with, but in my opinion, if I was a bank, I would much rather see that net worth growing year over year.
Yeah.
Instead of it's got to go hand in hand. Your cash flow needs to go up with it.
Right. Yeah.
But they can look at that and say, man, this guy's worth X amount. If anything goes wrong, he can sell a couple of these properties. That's what you're talking about.
That's right.
And make this happen.
That's absolutely right. They want it. The bank, and at the end of the day, they want to feel secure in the deal that they're making and know that if something happens, that they're going to get their money.
Right.
Banks do not like to foreclose.
No.
They do not like to foreclose on properties.
No.
It's too much work, costs them too much money.
They're going to lose money on it.
Yep. Yep. So if they can almost guarantee, 50 years ago, you walk into a bank, you shake a man's hand, it's built on a relationship. They say, yeah, I'll do that deal with you. It was pretty much that.
Yeah.
And then the paperwork was done. Now it's not that anymore, but it is a similar process of the proverbial shaking a man's hand and saying, hey, dude, I'm going to work hard to make sure that you don't lose money.
And I still like that kind of relationship.
I do too.
So
those are the ones that are the most productive in the real estate industry.
I want it to be trust between me and my bank.
Yep. Yep. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us today. That was a lot of valuable information from Bradon. Appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
If you missed the last one, go back and watch the last one to see kind of the origins of his story. Help us out. Help us reach more people. Like, share, and subscribe. And remember to always love God, love others, and let your work reflect that. We'll catch you on the next one.